You're listening to Foxx on the Wire podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 59 of Foxx on the Wire.
59, man.
59. We have a very special guest today in the, I guess you call it the podcasting / music room / room of escape. And we have Gammie. Welcome, Al.
Thanks, mate. Thank you very much for having me. Been looking forward to this.
Absolutely. We've sort of been trying to hook it up for only a couple of weeks now.
Yeah, I think we nailed it pretty quickly, I reckon.
Yeah, so happy to have you in person. It's nice to get you here, and big thanks to Looch for basically hooking us up.
Yeah. He well, I go way back with Looch, obviously from the Tear Gas days, and then we're also in another band together, Moments Apart, for a number of years. And I mean, to be honest with you, it's a little bit weird at the moment not being in a band with him because we've just done it for so long. But I suppose if you get technical about it, Tear Gas has never actually really broken up. It's just that we do stuff very rarely, like, every 7 years. It's kind of been for a little while. So if an opportunity comes up with a show, even now, like, we'd still probably have to look at it. There's still a little bit of a fan base for that band out there, but there's just no desire really to make new music with that band. So
when I first caught up with Looch, it was just before the before COVID hit first time around. So I was like Feb 2020, and from memory, I think it was Tear Gas we were about to play some shows. Yeah, we had it all lined up, and it was just before COVID, and we were slated to play Melodic Rock Fest, and I'm not sure how familiar you are with the debacle that was, but basically the promoters that organised it didn't really do an amazing job of it, to say the least. All the international acts that they'd booked, there were a number of them that they hadn't paid, or been able to get visas for, and it was just, every day you'd be hearing another band's dropped out of it. And we were one of the first Australian-based bands to drop off it because it just didn't feel right for us. The thing was falling apart. And even though we'd been rehearsing and we were super keen to get in front of our crowd, it had been 2016 was the last time we'd played. So we were keen to get out there after 4 years hibernation. But yeah, it just wasn't gonna fly. So what was the date for that gig originally?
It was like the first week of March, like 3rd or 4th or something like that. And the gig went ahead, and there were people there, but like the actual lineup had about a fifth of the number of bands that was meant to be there, and only a couple of internationals, and not the big names. All the big names had dropped out. So we just decided we don't want to be, lots of people weren't getting their ticket refunds. I think there's still people that haven't got their ticket refunds. So yeah, it was just one of those things. We made a decision as a band that, we're better off just to let's can it and let's book our own show for our own crowd. But then obviously COVID hit and we didn't get to do that. And we haven't been able to come back to it yet, unfortunately. Yeah.
Still pending.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, you've taken on a bit of a solo gig. Well, we're going to get into all that, but firstly, congratulations on your second single, The Rescue.
Thanks, man.
Which just dropped, what was it, about a week ago?
Yeah, a week or two ago now, which is great. So thank you. Really proud of that one. It's pretty different to the first single, and that was always kind of the plan. I wanted a bit of polarity between the first and second single that people heard, so they get a little bit more of a feel for what the album's going to be about, although there's plenty of curveballs, so it's just really a little taste at the moment. But really happy with how it's been received so far. It's a little bit probably, not worried, but like I kind of thought with The Rescue, well, this could go one of two ways. Like it's a longer song. It's, not as kind of poppy and catchy and upbeat as Beautiful is. So, but people are responding well to it, getting lots of good engagement on it. And it's exciting. It just makes me more and more impatient because I've got this album that's been sitting there, it's done. And, like I'm trying to be strategic and follow all the guidance that I'm getting to put out a new release, and which is like, stagger it out with singles and, then just wait. But I just want everyone to hear it because, like you and I are a similar age, and, I'm an album guy.
Yep.
I know it's becoming a bit of a lost art form nowadays, that people tend to just pull a song off this playlist, pull a song off that playlist, and that starts to become that's starting to become more the norm, people just mash together, and connect to the songs they connect to. But I like listening to an album start to finish in the sequencing order that the band wanted you to hear it in.
Yeah.
I'm a really firm believer in that. Call me old fashioned, but that's the album I made.
I get it.
Yeah,
Totally get it.
Those are the albums I grew up loving.
Yep.
And still love. And that's the kind of album that I wanted to make, where I've put a lot of thought into how I've sequenced it.
Right.
And it tells a story start to finish, and it kind of moves in, different modes. And that's what I wanted to do.
Okay. So have you got a release date for the album? Or can you not?
It kind of keeps moving, to be honest with you. No, it's not that I can't share it. The plan was to be the last week in July, which I hope will still go to plan, but I might squeeze in another single before that, and it just depends when the video gets done. So I'm shooting a video in a couple of weeks for another single.
Yep.
And then I'm not sure whether I'll put out 3 or 4 singles before the album comes out. So not quite sure. I might push it into August if I have to, but I also need to start thinking about a launch and getting out and gigging, because I've got to get it in front of people. Like right now, it's great that people are listening to it on Spotify, and they're engaging with me on social media, and that's awesome. I'm getting lots of beautiful comments and messages every day.
Yep.
But I want to get in front of people. Again, I'm old school like that. I know with COVID, it might prove difficult to do so, but I think playing, a folk style and playing something where I can literally just go out there by myself and with an acoustic guitar and play the whole album, and it'll sound all right.
Yep.
But by the same token, my plan is to get, 1 or 2 musos around me, just to kind of give it a little bit more depth and colour.
More of a kickoff to the world.
I think so. Yeah. Nothing too major, but it'd be nice just to have like a, maybe a second guitarist and a bass player that can kind of do a bit of both. And, a violinist is going to be pretty important, because there's a lot of that on the album.
Yep.
And someone else that can sing, because there's a fair bit of extra backing vocals on there.
Yeah, I was going to say, you had a guest vocalist on the latest single, The Rescue.
Yeah.
Alyssa.
Yeah, Alyssa Aegis. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it.
That's why I left it to you. I didn't want to stuff it up.
I'm married to a Maltese, and that's a Maltese surname. She's not Maltese, I don't believe, but her husband, I think, is.
Right.
And so I said it like Aegis the other day in front of my in-laws.
Yeah.
And they corrected me, and they said something else, but I can't remember exactly. It's like Ajus or something like that. I can't remember exactly what they said, but they corrected me, so I am saying it wrong. So sorry, Alyssa and Daniel.
I would have said Aegeus in my Australian accent, but it's probably not.
I think it's Agus or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to hit up Alyssa and Daniel afterwards, and 1, apologise for mispronouncing their surname.
Me too, I apologise.
And to get the correct pronunciation. But my Maltese family will, I'm sure, correct me again and again until I get it right.
Okay, cool. Well, we're both in the same boat, so we can share the blame there.
That's it.
So your first single as a solo guy was Beautiful, which you released a couple of months ago.
That was, it's nearly 2 months. I think it's about just bang on 2 months ago now.
Yep.
Which was the first one from the album. That was exciting. It's still like, if I don't like to pick favourites, but like if push came to shove and I had to pick what I think was, my favourite song on the album, that's got to be it. It's it was the easiest one to write, as far as it just flowed out of me. How sometimes, and this because you write music yourself, sometimes you like a song, you'll really labor over it, and it'll take a while, and you come back to it, and you might park it for a couple of months and come back and completely change something, and you pick away at it. This wasn't one of those songs. Like I sat down once and I kind of mapped out the chord progression. The only difference is, I think when I first wrote it, it was in a slightly higher key.
Okay.
And it was just sounding a bit more rock and roll, hard rock. So I dropped it down a bit to get some of those lower tones out of my voice. And I'm really happy with that. It's not a hard song for people to like. And after years of like playing hard rock and heavy metal, and having my family members, like my mother and aunties and uncles and grandmother, even being polite and saying, "Oh yeah, Al, it sounds really good," but you can tell that it's not really their jam.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But with this, this is the kind of music that I think just about anyone can listen to. They might not love it, but it's not gonna give them an ear bashing some of my previous bands.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I know when I first started releasing solo stuff, people were like, what the hell is this? What are you doing? You know, turn away from the hard rock stuff.
Yeah.
So how did you feel when you were releasing it, and what did your normal sort of people who have been following you, how did they react? Like, did they think you'd lost your mind, or did they enjoy the change?
Mostly they've enjoyed it, I think. You know, I mean, there's some that it's not for them. You know, they prefer like the big guitars and all that sort of stuff, and that's cool. Like, but for the most part, everyone's been really into it.
Yeah.
Because I think if you strip it away, like even when I was in metal bands, I was always a singer.
Yeah.
You know, like there's a lot of extreme metal and metalcore and that sort of thing that's going around where, you know, you got screaming vocals or death growls and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I've never been that kind of singer, even when I was playing the heaviest stuff that I've played, like in my last band, To an End.
Yeah.
You know, I was still like, it was still tuneful and, you know, yes, it was louder and more powerful and that sort of thing. But yeah, I've always been a singer because I grew up listening to singers. You know, I didn't grow up listening to death growlers. You know, like I like some of those bands, but like for me, that's, you know, that's not like listening to Robert Plant or like Ian Gillan from Deep Purple in the early 70s and Paul Rodgers from Free and Bad Company. That's all the stuff that my dad raised me on. And to me, that's singing, and that's the earliest stuff that made me want to be a singer. So
you probably had always had these sort of songs in you. It was just the right time and just the right thing to do at this time. And I totally get that. And it's probably not a big change for people. Just tone down guitars, drums probably aren't as loud, and you just...
It really was
different approach to the songwriting.
I think you're right, and like because you know you write music in this style as well, and like I think my approach to the songwriting, it was a little different in that I was drawing from a different batch of influences, and I had a color palette, you know, that I knew I wanted this album to sound like, and I wanted it to be like very green, very woody, and I loved that I wanted it to be green because I'm colorblind.
Yeah, right.
And green's the color that I struggle with the most, red green. And so I found it really ironic, and I love the irony in it. But I just see like fields of green, but like dark green, you know, like autumn leaves falling, and you know, like those are all the images that were in my head when I started writing these songs. Like I wanted to sound wood,
right,
and like a bunch of guys sitting around a campfire. So the kind of music that a bunch of guys could sit around a campfire and pull out some acoustic instruments and play. So I didn't want to get too carried away with, you know, like lots of extra production value and electric instruments. There's a little bit of that on there, but like, you know, most songs you could imagine people just sitting around a campfire and playing them and singing out loud.
And you got the perfect guitar for that sort of sound. Man, the good old Maton, a fellow Maton player, except you're a lefty.
I am a lefty. I'm a southpaw, proud one at that. But it's been a very difficult life as a left-handed guitarist, let me tell you.
Yeah, well,
you can't just walk into a guitar store and pluck one off the wall unless you want to play, you know, a $300 Squire copy.
Well, silly me, you know, we were talking today about hooking up tonight, and you asked me if you should bring your guitar. I'm like, you know, I've got guitars lying around.
You have got guitars coming out of your a-hole, man.
They're in different tunings, but, you know, we'll work something out. And then you go, I'm a lefty. I'm like, I knew that. I
can actually play, like, a little bit, like, passably with an upside-down right-handed guitar because I'm so used to picking up right-handed dudes guitars my whole life, and my dad's a right-handed guitarist, and so I actually I first played on a right-handed guitar that was upside down. You know, the first time I learned a bar chord, you know, and even the open chords was all like upside down like that, and then, you know, Dad's like, we should probably get your left-handed guitar, and then when I did, that's when my playing sort of started to get a bit more serious. So
what do you reckon happened? Why are you a lefty?
Well, I'm left-handed at everything that I do. So like when I played footy as a junior, I kicked a footy with my left foot. I write with my left hand. I do everything left-handed. So
makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm not ambidextrous at all. I'm absolutely woeful with anything with my right hand or on the right side of my body. Okay.
Well, I'm glad you brought it because it's a beautiful guitar, and we've sort of been comparing guitars, you know, but
you've got some incredible ones. I'm really loving this 808 on the wall next to me.
Yeah, the Blackwood. Yeah, full body.
I want to get one of those one day.
Yeah, I had to wait a little while for that when I was sort of shopping for one. I think they'd run out of the wood or something, so I did have to wait a little while for it, and then one came in at Echo Tony rang me up, and
nice.
I didn't have the money for it.
Yeah.
But I pulled the money together and went and got it because I'd been waiting for it.
It's
so
worth every penny.
Yeah.
I think Maitons, and not just because they're Australian made and Melbourne made, but like at the price point, they come in, like sounding like you could get a Martin that's that's $6-7 grand.
Yeah.
That a $3 Maiten will sound just as good as, I reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've actually been shopping for an electric guitar today, as recent as today, actually, because getting an old band back together. Plus, I need a different sound for some of the acoustic tracks I'm working on, just the the overdub stuff. And
sure,
I haven't really brought an electric guitar since I was in my probably early 20s.
Oh, right, it's a long time. Then,
and I've been really fussy about what I'm sort of looking for this time around. So, I've been to a few different guitar shops a few times and tried a few, and I just can't find one. But I think I've settled on a Tally.
Oh, it's always nice. I got one myself. Yeah. It's my favourite electric that I own.
Yeah. I think I back in the day I never would have thought I'd pick something like that, but it's for a different reason. And
Are you going with the single coils, or is it one that's got humbucker?
Well, that's where I got stuck today because I'd picked one out, like a nice sunburst one again, and it had the 2 humbuckers. Yeah, because I didn't want to get too far away from what I was used to with humbuckers.
Yeah, of course.
But then I played it today, and I'm like, doesn't really sound
like a Tally.
Like a Tally.
Yeah.
And it probably sounds too similar to what I've already got with the Les Paul and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I put it back and I rang a friend of mine who works at a music shop, and she's got something similar, but they're single coils. So I'll hopefully, depending what happens with the lockdown in the next few days, go and pick up the single coil one from her.
That's cool. I think, so, if you've got a Les Paul, man, that's going to cover every humbucker need you've ever got. Like absolutely. A Les Paul will do all of that.
Yep.
And it's such a versatile guitar, like, for anything, you can play like blues to, to really heavy metal on it.
Which is what I did.
Yeah, exactly.
That for years.
You can play everything on a Les Paul and they're great. Whereas, if you want that point of difference and those options, a Tele is great. My Tele, the reason why I love it so much, it's almost like a Strat Tele mutant. So there's an extra pickup in the middle. So it's got a 5-way pickup selector switch. So I can basically split all those coils. So I've got all the same sounds that a Tele does, and then all the same sounds that a Strat does.
Right.
Yeah, and it's nice. So for recording options, there's not a great deal of electric guitar on my album, but the stuff that has electric guitars, it's 80% of it's that Telecaster, and sometimes it sounds like a Strat. You would have thought I'd be using a Strat.
Nice. Yeah. Just looking for something a bit more versatile, and I thought, Tele, I guess they're pretty popular, and they can be used for a wide variety of things. And what I'm doing at the moment, I kind of need something a bit more jangly, I think.
Yeah, nice.
But the Les Paul's kept me going for probably 20 years.
I wish I owned one. I don't. Like that'll next time. I'm not really looking at buying any more electrics. I got plenty, but one day I definitely want like a gold top Les Paul. That's just always been in the back of my mind. But I've got my PRS, kind of, if I need a Les Paul-ish tone, kind of does that. So if I need
they're nice actually.
Yeah, beautiful. Like that's that's what I used when I was playing in Moments Apart, and it's got a big beefy sound, double humbucker. So I can cover off those tones if I need it. Nice. Something quite different to the Tele.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I've always appreciated artists that do that sort of hard rock thing or even metal, but can also strip it back to acoustic. I guess Chris Cornell for me was the man.
Oh yeah,
he had the best of both worlds. So
he could actually do anything. That guy, like there's nothing he wouldn't have been able to sing. Like, just unbelievable.
Anything better than anyone. And definitely, obviously, someone to look up to. But definitely appreciated the Soundgarden stuff, and when he sat down with an acoustic guitar. So that was a big, and still is a big thing for me. So, and I kind of see that. Same thing for you.
Yeah, thanks.
It's just
it's like, to me it was really about, look, what am I trying to achieve here? Do I want, the big guitars to be the focus? And like, let's face it, like we both love, hard rock and heavy metal as well. But, the guitars are the main thing.
Yep.
Like, sure, you've got some great hard rock and heavy metal vocalists, but, that style of music's all about the guitars, and they're loud, and they're, you got one pan in the left speaker, one pan in the right. Yeah. And it's a wall of sound. And I love that. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But I really wanted this record that I've made to be about the stories, about the songs, and about the vocal, primarily, and then the instrumentation is just there to support that. And I feel like to be able to have those stories resonate and to have them connect with more people and a broader audience, I thought that delivering them in a stripped back, intimate way, as intimate as I could possibly make these songs, without it being too, samey. Like if you just have one acoustic guitar and a vocal throughout a 10-song album, it can start to get a little bit samey. So there's definitely variation on there, but I just felt like stripping it right back to acoustic instruments allows that vocal to kind of take center stage and allows the stories to really be heard. So every word that I sing, I don't want people to be thinking, oh, what is he actually singing there? I don't want people to have to go to the lyrics. Like they should be able to understand what I'm saying. And same with like slowing down the tempo of songs as well, and really giving it space. And even now, like listening to the album, there's still a couple of songs where I'm like, probably could have slowed it down a bit more if I'm honest. Like, and I think that's just speaking to a lot of guys that have come from like a hard rock background or a punk rock background, and then they do acoustic stuff. They say the same thing. You just got that mentality of playing rock bands, they make it faster, and it's hard to slow down and think that you're still going to sound good.
Well, the faster you play it, the more verses you can fit into the song and that sort of thing.
There's also punk songs that, like 2 minutes and that sort of thing. And, I love old school punk as well. And so like it's, I can appreciate the art of a 2-minute punk song, but, and look, most of the songs on this album are pretty short. They all come in around 3.5 minutes. There's a couple that go over 4 minutes, but, not that many. I tried to keep it short and sharp.
Okay. So have you played solo acoustic shows before? Have you ever done that?
I've done a few, over the years, just as kind of one-offs.
Yeah.
So I've never like intentionally said, right, I'm going to go out and start playing solo acoustic shows, but I've done them sort of as a bit of a byproduct of, my past in other bands. So I've gone out and played a set that has, like a bunch of Tear Gas songs, a couple of Moments Apart songs, and maybe a few covers and that sort of thing. I've done that, like a number of times over the years, but always as just kind of one-offs. Whereas this will be when I get out there, hopefully pretty soon. Yeah, this will be the first time where I've actually got an album that's in this style that I'll go out and play. And sure, like I'll chuck in a Tear Gas song or two if people want to hear it. If there's people there that used to come and watch me in those days, there's some of those songs that translate really well into this style. So, I'd always be keen to throw one or two of those in there to keep people happy. It's all good.
Keep those people yelling out in the crowd. Play Tear Gas!
Yeah, I'm definitely going to get it. So, I've got to get in front of it. Yeah. And that's fine. Like, I'm really proud of that band, and I still like playing those songs. Like a lot of them I wrote when I was like really young, like 17, 18 years old.
Wow.
But they're still like, people still ask to hear them, which is awesome. So, like, I'm not going to be. It really annoys me. Like, I think he's getting a bit better these days. But like Billy Corgan, and I grew up a massive Smashing Pumpkins fan. Don't get me wrong, I love, like Siamese Dream is one of my favorite albums. Like, they're a great band. But he always sort of treated the fans, I think, a little bit disrespectfully in saying, if you come and see Smashing Pumpkins, I'm going to play what I want to play. Yeah. And I'm not here to do you favors and be a jukebox and play greatest hits. But I think, like I can sort of see where he's coming from, that he wants to play what's, what's stoking his fire. Yeah. But if people are paying their hard earned and taking the time to like come in and see you, you got to give them a bit of what they want.
Yeah. I know there was a few, I know probably Silverchair and Nirvana did,
like similar things.
Teen Spirit.
Totally.
And Tomorrow. I mean, Daniel Johns probably in general now.
Silverchair to like a massive degree, like, and that's a bummer. Like, and I fell out of love with that band a long time ago. Like, not just for that reason. Like, I just pretty much like after when Diorama came out, I didn't really connect with that album, and then the one after it, what I heard of it wasn't really for me. But I loved the first 3 albums when I was a teenager, and it was always a bit of a shame that like they played a few songs from that era, but like they basically completely ignore Frog Stomp. And I get it, you don't want to play the shit that you wrote when you were 15 forever. Like there are songs I wrote when I was 15, and I think, oh God, would I want to go out and play those? Yeah. But would it hurt you to do it if you knew that there were people in the crowd that was going to absolutely make their night?
Yeah, I know.
I would want to give people. I mean, I'm a people pleaser by nature. Like that's just who I am. Like I wouldn't want anyone to walk away feeling unsatisfied. Yeah,
it's a fine line. I mean, I was listening to a podcast the other day where they basically play through albums. It's called The Grunge, and they played through Freak Show, Silver Chairs Freak Show. I mean, I think they'd heard it before. It might have been a while, and I think they got to like the 4th or 5th song, like No Association, and they just made a comment. It goes, "Love the music. You know what's letting this album down so far is the lyrics." So I think that could be partly why Daniel Johns
juvenile, and he can't
very
connect
young,
with it.
And maybe he's just. I mean, I think he'll maybe come back around.
I have a feeling like one day they will. That one day they'll do some big reunion thing, and it'll be huge, and everyone will want to see it, and they might actually decide, look, we're going to actually come out and play more songs off the first couple of albums.
Yeah, I think he just got a bit embarrassed about it, maybe.
But I'd be there if they did that, like in a heartbeat. I haven't seen them live in like probably 20 years or something, but like I'd 100% go back if they were going to play songs off the first 2 albums.
I think part of that, like if I can tap into his artist mind, like he was still really pushing his music forward. Like he was still really looking forward to what he could keep creating. So I think maybe he felt that was sort of dragging him back to his past a little bit and sort of cut off his forward creative brain a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think you're definitely onto something there, and I can relate to that to a degree. Like, it doesn't particularly excite me, like, of the thought of like going and making another Tear Gas album. I'm proud of the music we made, and if there's a live show and there are going to be people there that want to hear it, absolutely, like sign me up, I'll do it anytime. But to sit and like put all the work that's required into writing and recording and promoting a new album in that style, I don't have any interest in doing it at the moment.
But you will again, maybe when the time's right, probably.
Yeah, maybe, or something different that's just a bit more electric. I feel like I'll definitely go back to making stuff that's a bit more electric sounding at some stage, but it could be just something completely new again. Who knows?
Yeah, with the acoustic stuff, I found it was just there was a lot more room to paint the picture, like in the recording. Like I guess the palette, as you sort of said, is a lot more open. Doesn't mean you stopped loving your rock and metal and stuff, but I think maybe, dare I say, there's only so much you can fit into the 2 speakers with a rock band, but the acoustic stuff, you can pull things out. There's so much space. It's, and that's that's a big thing that got me and still has got me.
Yeah, it's a really vast sonic field. Yeah. And you're picking instruments that are going to fill certain sonic spaces. Yeah. And so I was definitely thinking like that more than I was when I was making hard rock music. Because I'm thinking, right, so something needs to sit in this kind of space. So like it really needs something like Beautiful, the first single. It was pretty much done. I felt it was done. And then like 11th hour, like right before it was about to be mixed, I'm like, something's missing, like just kind of sitting on top of the guitars. And I'm like, it needs a mandolin. I've got mandolin on some other songs on the album, and I already had those done in the can, but I was like, Beautiful needs a mandolin. Yeah. So, like we got one on there real quick, and I just like said, hold off, I'm mixing, I'm going to get a mandolin track on this.
Sweet.
And I tell you what, as soon as I dropped it in, like it's just, that was the missing piece. Wow. And it was good before, but it was just so much better having that, because there was a gap in that sonic space where it just needed something a little, that plucky sort of brightness that just kind of gives it that sparkle that's sitting on top, because it didn't have as much of that sparkle.
Yeah, it's a nice addition. I could hear something there. I wasn't sure if it was a mandolin. Did you play it?
No, I can't play mandolin.
Okay.
Yeah. That's one of my little things I want to do before the next record.
Yeah.
Is learn it.
Yeah.
But I got to find myself a left-handed one.
Oh yeah.
Or restring a righty and just
if anyone knows where you can get one, hit us up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't think there's that many out there, but I worked with a lot of different musicians on the album, and I was using like air gigs, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with. So it's basically like Airtasker, but it's for musicians and it's worldwide. And so musicians will post their services. So if you're a mandolin player, you say, my name's Jeffrey, I'm a mandolin player, I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. Here's some sample tracks of my work, my playing, and you can have a listen. These are my prices, like per song, it's $100 or $150 or whatever. And you can just go like search whatever instrument you want, and you can listen to samples until you find something that's like what you're after.
Yep.
And so that's how I found most people that I worked with on the album, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Okay. No, I've never heard of that. That's
it's worth keeping in mind.
I guess it makes sense because you don't actually have to get someone physically in the studio these days.
The only person that played on the record that I've actually met in person is Alyssa.
Yeah, right.
Like everyone else was like in other countries, basically.
And we've still got her name wrong.
Yeah, that's her name, yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. So what sort of, where across the globe did you reach? Nashville?
Nashville, yeah, a few guys in Nashville. Like that's like definitely a place that you go for musicians, you know, and the standard, there's a guy that did some banjo for me and some pedal steel.
Oh, yeah.
And man, it's amazing playing. It just really kind of brought other elements to the tracks that I couldn't have done on my own. I really laid the foundations and, did all the bass and guitars myself, and, some of the drums I did myself, but then got some extra percussion done by a guy over in the US as well. I can't remember what city he was in, but some guys in the UK. There's a girl in Ireland that sung backing vocals on one of the tracks.
Wow.
So it was again, it was a group effort in the end. There's an accordion on there. I really had the I guess the desire to keep it to generally folk instrumentation, so that there are acoustic instruments like an accordion, mandolin, a lot of fiddle, banjo, that sort of stuff, but I was able to have a really diverse color palette, as we've said.
Wow. That's interesting. That's a good way to sort of make some connections, Yeah,
absolutely. I went back to a lot of the same people because they did such a good job on the first track I sent them. Yeah. But then on the inverse of that, there were a couple of instances where it wasn't quite what I wanted, and I maybe didn't even know it at the time until I heard someone else do a track that was better. And so then I decided that, look, I might have lost $100 here, but I'd rather get this guy to now replace that track because it's kind of more what I'm thinking. Definitely with the fiddle. Once I found my fiddle player, he was just dynamite. This guy, Bobby, plays like a beast, but the first fiddle player that I found that did a track for me wasn't too stoked about it, so ended up replacing it.
So what's the deal with payment? Whether you use that track or not, you got to pay them?
Yeah, like basically. If you've accepted the job and you signed off, they generally will allow revisions. So, there are a few instances where we've done a couple of revisions to kind of get there in the end. It was very half of them probably nailed it first take or second take, but there's a few that maybe 3 or 4 times until we got it. And then you pay when you're happy. But with that one, I didn't actually realize that I was not happy with it until I heard Bobby's playing on the next track. And I'm like, man, I need Bobby to play on this other track. He's so much better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all right. Is that I've never heard of it actually.
You got to check it out if you're making a record.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously the studio time this time around with your solo stuff would have been quite different than back in the day with the other bands.
Yeah.
If it was like my time in the bands, we all get in there and have to drag some people more than others.
Yep.
And
I've been there.
Did you enjoy this process? I won't say more so than the old days. That had the charm to it, obviously.
Yeah.
But
I did, yeah. I enjoyed it in a way. It wasn't easy, and I was learning about not just putting my songs down, but also about production. So like I'm not amazing at production and things. I mean, like I can arrange songs well, and I feel like I know what instruments need to go where and what notes need to be played where and that sort of thing. But like mic placement and what mics to use and compression and EQ and all that stuff, I was learning it.
Yeah,
knew a little bit about it, but I was really kind of figuring it out as I went along. And I was getting some really good advice from Chris the Melco, who mixed the album. Really good friend of mine. I've worked with him in the past, and he was giving me like good coaching, and he was always available if I had a question about, hey, is this too much compression, or like what do I do to fix this problem? And he was always available, and he taught me a lot. And now in the future, probably not my next one, but like at some stage I feel like I could almost like mix one myself, in the future. So we'll see. But I liked the solitude of it. And I did it during like lockdown, a lot of it during lockdown, and then over Christmas and stuff. And if I'm honest, I had a really rough year last year. Yeah. With lockdown. We lost our wedding, the week of it. We had to cancel everything, and and my fiance at the time, now my wife, she lost her job, and I was still working, but mental health was definitely not where it normally was, and I was really struggling with the isolation and not being around people and having to work remotely rather than in the office, and not being able to socialize and that sort of thing. I was really, really starting to slip, and the time was cathartic in a way that it gave me a focus, so that at the end of the workday, I wasn't just pouring a whiskey and then pouring another one and just kind of like falling asleep on the couch, like with, that's no life, So I decided that, when the inspiration struck, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to update my little home studio, and I'm going to make an album. I'm going to use this time effectively. And I just like picked up the acoustic guitar, and I wrote and started putting stuff down, and kept picking away at it over, like a good 6 months. And now I've got this record.
And was that sort of the first time you'd written in a little while?
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah, I hadn't written since we did the To An End album, which we were writing that for years. Like, I think we were recording most of it in 2017, 2018. But some of those demos that I'd sung on and written the songs were like a couple of years prior to when we recorded the album. And in that band, I was only writing the vocal melodies and lyrics. I wasn't writing any music. And we did 2 one-off Tear Gas singles a few years ago as well. And so I wrote those songs, but I love those songs, but it was a very deliberate exercise, like that I'm going to create songs that sound like old Tear Gas. And it was like, I don't want to use the word contrived, because, like there was integrity in those songs. But yeah, like these songs that I've written, they're not contrived in any way. This is just actually what it sounded like when I picked up a guitar and started mucking around, and then started coming up with themes that I wanted to write about, and lyrics and, and tones and things like that I wanted to use. And it's all what really kind of felt natural.
I don't want to get too far away from the making of the album, but you sort of said about the 2 singles that kind of seemed a bit too deliberate, maybe. Can you imagine, like, you've done a few albums with a popular band? Would it be hard to keep creating new music sort of naturally? Do you know what I mean?
I think it would.
You'd be very critical, I'd imagine, especially if you've had successful.
I agree.
Albums,
and you wouldn't want to lose your place at the top of the perch,
and over a period of years too, like it would just.
And that's why, like, a lot of people slam, bands that don't like grow and change. You look like an AC/DC or something like that. But by the same token, like, if they've got a formula that works and people are loving it, I get it. If that's what gives them enjoyment out of their creating their music, I get that. Like, because they've got an audience, they've got a job, they've got a lot of stakeholders that are taking, a vested interest in their band being successful.
And that's what people want from them.
That's right. So if AC/DC went out and made a folk album,
can you imagine?
No one would be into it. Yeah, like
I'd love to hear it.
So would I. Yeah,
the hell. I'm pretty sure you'd be screaming for.
I think Brian Johnson singing folk can't quite. I think Bon Scott could have done it because he could I'm not a huge AC/DC fan, but like if I'm gonna listen to AC/DC, I'm Bon Scott all the way.
Okay,
I love those early albums because he could really sing, whereas I think Brian Johnson's just. He's scream. I mean, he's great at what he does, but he's just screaming constantly in the same tone. Whereas Bon Scott had like a bit of that swagger and a bit of a smirk to what he was singing. I always liked that.
Yeah, I think I was more of a Brian Johnson guy.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think that's just what I got into first, and not that I don't like the, Bon Scott era. It's a totally different thing, I kind of appreciate the fact that Brian Johnson can still freaking sing like that. Wouldn't be like 72 or something.
Yeah, it wouldn't be easy to go out there every night.
Oh, geez.
Physically, it's demanding.
Yeah.
And even when I was into an end, towards the end of my time in that band, when I decided, I was starting to make up in my mind that I don't really want to do this for very much longer. Like the shows were actually really physically demanding on my body. Like my throat would just be destroyed at the end of it. It's like the music I'm doing now is music that I see myself being able to grow old with.
Yep.
And I'm getting older. And so, this is definitely...
We're still young, mate. Don't...
Yeah. Still young, but getting older.
Yeah.
I mean, the themes on this album is, part of the reason why I had such a rough year last year is, and, like I said before, you and I are the same age. So,
young. We're still young.
Young. That's right. But you sort of you got one foot in youth.
Yep.
And you got one foot in being old.
Mm-hmm.
And we're neither here nor there, really. We're in this weird middle spot that nobody talks about. Everyone talks about youth, celebrating youth and, the youth of the future. And I'm totally for that. I've got so much faith in young people today. I've worked with incredible young people on my video and, I was just, I talk about it so much because I was just so impressed with their entrepreneurialism and how serious they are about their artistry and their ideas. And I love what young people are coming up with these days. And a lot of people celebrate that. And then a lot of people celebrate the older people as well, as they've been around the block, they've seen things happen, they've experienced, they've lived. But people that are in their mid-30s, it's this weird in-between. And if you haven't already got your shit together as far as what the blueprint tells you to do, have kids, buy a house, do what's expected of you, do what everyone else is doing, that's not necessarily for everyone. And if that is for you, and I know lots of people that all they wanted to do is settle down and have kids and they've done it and they're super happy and I'm super happy for them. I think it's wonderful. Myself personally, I was, having probably a bit of an existential crisis in a way that I was, about to get married and, faced with the prospect of a family, in my future pretty soon, and then accepting that there were going to be certain aspects of my youth that I was going to have to leave behind and say goodbye to, but I was really clinging to it, and I didn't want to let it go. And a lot of the songs on this album is really, not literally from that, but it's the themes and the lens that I was seeing things through when I was writing those lyrics. It's really seeing it through my younger eyes, and really lamenting things from my past and really going back and being in my past a lot. And it's really weird for me because I'm a very future focused guy naturally. I'm always talking about what's coming. I'm never satisfied in the moment. I don't think I'm wired for happiness as such. I'm always chasing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you're never really happy with anything you've done. It's not like you're unhappy with it either, but it's never good enough.
Yeah, that's it. It's never enough. And I don't think, and I've got such bad imposter syndrome as well, that I actually think everything I do is terrible until somebody tells me that it's not, which is, and I don't really think that I'm being dramatic in the moment, but there's always that part of me that's that. And so for me, it was, making this album, and sure, Beautiful is a really poppy song. The Rescue's got a really uplifting sort of vibe to it as well. But I'll tell you, there's some really dark tracks on this album, and there's some stuff where I get, there's some stuff that's going to be hard for me to get up there and sing, because it really sort of awakens, some pain or some, and even if it's not literal pain in the story, it's just the themes that I'm talking about and the the area that I'm playing in with those lyrics, it's, it hurts. But I feel like I've created some of my best work in that space. I'm really proud that I was bold enough to go there and sit in my shit, to be able to pull this stuff out.
Yeah, I think it was Trent Reznor. I saw him. There was a quote in a magazine I read. It's like I can't remember it exactly, but basically he takes himself to the depths of his own shit, so other people can then listen to it and relate to it, and something like that. So he basically sacrifices himself and his own mental well-being to create this piece of music for everyone else to listen to, basically.
I love that.
Yeah.
And, Trent.
I'll have to find that quote because it was really good. Yeah,
please do. Like, Trent's an absolute genius. I've always been a massive Nine Inch Nails fan as well. And, his production work on Marilyn Manson, the Antichrist Superstar.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that album scared the shit out of me when I was a teenager. I loved it so much.
I used to be scared of Manson too.
Yeah, it's scary.
It freaked the shit out of me.
Yeah, like, you're 13, 14 and...
I was older than that.
Yeah, or that album cover, like... And then I remember seeing the video for Sweet Dreams on Rage, like, late one night when I was, up watching the footy, and then after the footy, you just flick over to ABC and Rage is on. I remember thinking with that friggin' thing on his head and stuff, and I was like...
It's scary
this is scary, but this is so cool. Who's this Marilyn Manson? I remember, like, jumping on my mum's laptop to go on the internet back, like, when the internet, you didn't have a lot of images and it was just all text. I'm reading all about, like, cutting himself on stage and all of that stuff. And I was just like...
Removing ribs? Did you read that one?
Yeah, I read all of that. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I got to get this album.
Yeah. And it's a great album. And he scared the shit out of me too.
Yeah.
But his imagery was so good, and I think it was Billy Corgan might have said he was like an A-grade visual artist, Manson,
and the right thing at the right time.
Yeah,
and it was truly dangerous, and it had mystery and mystique. I mean, these days with the internet, like, there's none of that.
Exactly.
Like, everything's out there, and it's a bit of a lost art. Like, I used to love that I was scared of Marilyn Manson. I didn't know much about what it would be like to see him live, because I'm just hearing all this stuff. Yeah. And it kind of reminds me, I was watching, what is this? What, that Metal Headbangers Journey, maybe? Or like one of those metal docos that guy, can't remember his name, but he's a good filmmaker. He's done some good docos. And I think it was like when he was interviewing King Diamond, he was saying when he was a young kid and he first got the Merciful Fate album, on the first Merciful Fate album, on the back cover, you got pictures of the band members, but you can't see King Diamond. He's just a shadow, like a silhouette.
Yeah.
And then when people would go and see them live and King Diamond comes out with his full face paint, like the corpse paint, that, he was really the first one to kind of do that. Like, people were just like, far out. Yeah. This guy, like, what is he like? It's demon, and all these rumors about him, being, like some Satanist or occultist or, something like that. And I just think all that mystery and mystique, that was so cool when I was growing up, and it made things so much more powerful. Whereas, you don't really get that nowadays. It's all out there.
No, all these, I think, it's definitely the internet that kind of killed the mystery. And, all the artists have got, Instagrams and stuff.
Yeah.
And not all of them, but not all of them use it as heavily as some do, but kind of took away the mystery. And I remember that too. It wasn't easy you couldn't just pull up YouTube.
No.
I remember getting into like, Skid Row and Motley Crue.
Yeah, I love all that stuff too.
I had to go searching for VHS live tapes, get them from overseas sometimes. But now it's all on YouTube, which is great too. But there was a real mystery to it, and made you really hungry to get more,
totally,
to see them, to see what they look like, and see how they stood when they played, and all this sort of stuff. And especially if you'd read books,
that's right. And seen a still image,
it was it was a really simple thing, but it's kind of not like that now.
No, it's not. But Motley Crue is a good example. Like, that's one of the early bands that I really connected with as well. I remember, like, I used to get up as like a 5 or 6 year old and just watch Rage, on a Saturday morning, and that was like late 80s, early 90s. So it was like, like Alice Cooper and Motley Crue and Bon Jovi and all that stuff. And I remember just Motley Crue, I think it was the Dr. Feelgood video, and there's this fire and the big hair and the leather and stuff.
It was great.
I was like, this is friggin' cool, man. Like, whatever this is, like, sign me up. Like, it sounds kind of like what my dad played, as far as it had, like, the big, you know, heavy guitars like Deep Purple would have, but, you know, it was like next level, you know, it was this crunchy, big sound. And, you know, that drum sound on Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood, that's just massive, you know, and you can hear you could hear the influence in that drum sound on Metallica Black Album.
Oh, yeah.
And Metallica would never like to admit it, but I heard an interview with Bob Rock once. He was saying when he started working with Metallica, Lars actually said, he's like, look, I love the drum sound you put on Motley Crue's last album. Can we do something like that?
Yep.
You know, but Lars would never admit that because, you know, like the thrash guys and the glam guys were, you know, polar opposites.
Yeah, I was watching, my partner and I, Tahani, we were watching a metal doco, a thrash metal doco. I think it's on Amazon Prime. And that whole Metallica and Motley Crue thing came up, which kind of reminded me of
the rivalry.
Rivalry. And then, sort of, you know, Dr. Feelgood was a big influence of the Black Album. Yeah. So it's kind of funny how that works.
Yeah, it is. And it was an innovative drum sound because you had where that came from in the same interview with Bob Rock, he was talking about it, that Tommy sort of came to him and he was listening to a lot of the rap music and the hip hop that was coming out in the 80s, and like Two Live Crew and Public Enemy and stuff. And they're saying they got this big thunderous kick drum that's just like punchy. Yeah. How do we get that? Like, how do we get that sound? You know, so it's this big bassy sort of thing. Because before that, hard rock had a tinnier sort of, you know, it was like it's tinny kind of like harsh metallic sort of sound in the 80s. And I think that was the first album where it was just this real big bottom end. Yeah. You know, and it still had all those like big reverbs and stuff that were characteristic of the 80s recordings, but just had a huge kick drum and the bass locked into the kick drum. It was a great sounding album. Still sounds great to this day. I play it at the gym sometimes.
Fantastic album, and it had a really good groove to it as well. Like Tommy had a really good groove.
I love his drumming. It's really simple, but it's just like, you know, and his personality and his playing. I think that you know, that like pays for a lot, really. Like, he's not, you know, gonna do all this like crazy, you know, Mike Portnoy type Neil Peart stuff, but he doesn't need to because he just lays it down.
He's just got a really good energy, and like he said, his personality comes out and he's playing. And
I always love those bands where like each member is, you know, like their own personality and they're all as important as each other, like the Beatles and, you know, Led Zeppelin as well. Definitely like that. You know, they're all kind of, they're a star in their own right. It's not just like you got the singer that's the star and then the rest of the supporting cast. Always love that. Guns N' Roses in their day.
Yeah. And together as a unit, they form like, dare I say, the perfect band.
Supergroup. Yeah.
Yeah. And you sort of can't pre-plan that sort of thing, I don't think, you know?
No, like just not all bands are like that. You look at, take a band like Foreigner that's had so many hits, like you hear, you know, most people that you pull off the street, you're just like, they're going to be able to, like, you play them Foreigner's biggest hits, Cold as Ice, I Want to Know What Love Is, all that. Like, of course we know these songs. They're great songs. We love them. But like, ask them to name members of the band and they're going like, I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
No, like most people couldn't. Like, they know the songs because they're big hits. And that's why Foreigner now, they actually tour with no original members of the band. But their guitarist, who's the last remaining member of the band, he comes out and plays with them once in a while, but he's old and doesn't want to tour. But he still owns the rights to the name. He's still making money off it when they go out and tour. But people don't mind with a band like Foreigner because they're hearing all these hits that sound exactly the same way that they were recorded, but it's essentially a tribute band.
Interesting.
No one's really like cottoned on that's
I didn't know that. But then, you know, if you took Mick Mars out of Motley Crue, people probably... Well, they tried that with Tommy for a little while, didn't they?
Yeah, and it's just not the same.
It's not the same.
But I think, like, as some of those legacy rock bands that have been around since the 70s and 80s and stuff, as they start to get older and members, you know, like, start passing away and things like that, you know, eventually we might end up with bands that are actually like franchises. And they replace members until you have no original members left, but the band franchise is still the officially endorsed franchise. Like Kiss could do that easily.
And they would do that.
They will. I guarantee you one day there'll be 4 members of Kiss that aren't the original members.
I guess with Bon Jovi as well, Richie's not in the band. And
yeah, that's right. It's just John.
Technically, John is Bon Jovi. I guess,
that's right.
From a business, doesn't he own the whole?
Yeah, he does.
And he pays them as employees.
Correct. Yeah, they work for him.
Yeah. Well, but I'm not. I probably wouldn't go see Bon Jovi again until Richie comes back.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I did the last time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have gone, but my wife really wanted to go.
Yeah.
But she even said after that gig, we're like, all right, we're not going to see them again. It was really awful.
Yeah. Well, I think John's sort of lost his voice, hasn't he?
Yeah. He doesn't even try. He just sort of phones it in. I want to see a band go out there and work to capture the audience, and he just doesn't feel like he needs to, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, have you found your voice has changed much since you sort of started the hard rock to where you are now with your acoustic stuff? Like, is your voice changed a lot?
It has and it hasn't. I think still, and my point of difference in the more folk sort of arena is I've got this big voice that I can't help it. That's just what my voice sounds like. I've sung hard rock. I've cut my teeth having to be heard through shitty PA systems over really loud guitar amps.
Yeah.
So I developed a really loud,
okay,
big sounding voice. That said, when I was younger, my voice was a lot thinner. If you listen to those early Tear Gas recordings, I sound like a chipmunk, it was different. But over the years, my voice has kind of deepened and thickened and that sort of thing. And, I feel like I'm a better singer than I've ever been. But yeah, I'm not really throwing it as much as when I'm doing the heavier stuff. It's just a different tone. And I'm actually singing with some dynamics, whereas with a metal song, it's just got to be loud all the time. And I can jump behind a mic in the studio and they'll say, all right, Al, let's hit record. And, for those sorts of just straight up hard rock, I can nail it in a couple of takes. Usually it doesn't take much. I just kind of dial it in because it's all one sound. Whereas these songs where there's dynamics and there's parts where my voice gets louder and parts where it comes down really gentle and soft. Man, I did so many takes of every song vocally. And I'm really hard on my own vocals. So when I was tracking my own vocals, and I tracked all my own vocals on my own, no one was with me when I did it. I was in a dark room. I tried to sort of set the vibe and, get some candles going and, get my galaxy light happening. So they've got stars and stuff on the roof and, maybe even put some pictures in front of me for inspiration and things like that. And, try and get into the mood as much as I could, but I was really critical of myself. I'd make myself do it over and over. That was the roughest part. That was the part that wasn't fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, with the acoustic stuff, your voice is really on full display. You can't. There's nowhere to hide. Yeah. I mean,
same with guitar playing on an acoustic guitar compared to an electric, you got high gain and pickups. You can flub a few notes and you're not going to notice it. Whereas on an acoustic, every little detail is there.
Yeah, I mean, I found when I started doing the acoustic stuff, I really started to learn my voice a lot more because, before that it was just trying to get over the top of things. And it was a terrible way to learn how to sing and,
I think so too.
Developed many bad habits.
Yeah, same.
Probably did some damage. But,
same.
Once I picked up the acoustic and got more comfortable and more confident, I just started to grow and really learn, even with the guitar playing as well. Because
and I've heard your stuff and your singing's gorgeous. It's and you do a lot of different things. Like you were just talking about, you got some songs that are acoustic, but they're leaning on that rockier side. So you are throwing it a bit more and singing in a slightly higher register and that sort of thing. And then you got some stuff where you really take it back and it's really chilled and gentle. And I think that's like we were talking about the space before and the sonic feel, a voice can really fill that out and move with the dynamics in the song. The song breathes, it's not just loud start to finish.